I'm delighted to welcome such an experienced speaker here on the subject of Samsung's transformation. Please join me in welcoming him. So your recent book, Samsung Way, became a bestseller in Korea, and it is now available in English. Just this week, it was published in English. And the wonderful news that I heard today from you is that it's become an award-winning book. It was named the Book of the Year by Mail Economic Daily. So congratulations.
Thank you.
In the 1990s, it was a little-known OEM, original equipment manufacturer.
Yes.
How did this transformation occur in the last 20 years?
Yes, I think the most important momentum of Samsung's amazing turnaround or transformation was the so-called new management initiative in Korean Sin경영, Chairman Lee Kun-hee proposed in 1993. At that time, Chairman Lee was very concerned about the Samsung's lack of competitiveness in the global marketplace. And Chairman Lee Kun-hee also, he's a visionary, and he saw the big paradigm changes in the 21st century, globalization, digitization, and democratization in Korea. Yes, democratization in Korea was blessing to the Korean society, but due to in the wake of that kind of the democratization, local wages went up very sharply, and there were so many labor strikes in Korea. So it meant that Korea no longer became sort of a viable manufacturing basis based on low wages in the 1990s. So Chairman Lee Kun-hee felt Samsung will be sandwiched between Japan and China or Southeast Asia. So that was a big threat Chairman Lee Kun-hee felt at that time. So and also the Chairman Lee Kun-hee saw some opportunities and threats from globalization. And Samsung's main rival, Japanese companies like Sony or Panasonic, to avoid the sharp yen appreciation, the Japanese companies relocated their manufacturing bases from Japan to other Asian countries, starting from late 1980s. So it meant Samsung had to compete with Sony, and Sony brand and technologies combined with low wages of Malaysia or Thailand. That was a threat. And also Chairman Lee Kun-hee saw the golden opportunity from globalization, and they could tap into emerging markets like China. And Chairman Lee Kun-hee, most importantly, saw the golden opportunity from major paradigm shifts in the electronic industry, from analog technologies to digital technologies. In the analog era, Sony was an invincible leader in the electronic industry. But Sony was too complacent and feared about cannibalization too much. So Sony was somewhat slow to make transition from analog technologies to digital technologies. And Samsung thought it's a golden opportunity for them to catch up with Sony or Panasonic by making preemptive investments in the digital era. So that's why Chairman Lee Kun-hee proposed the new management initiative. And he set on a very ambitious goal to make Samsung a world-class company. It was a sort of a quality-driven goal by developing and selling premium products with its own brand. So to do so, Chairman Lee Kun-hee spearheaded complete corporate transformation. He wanted to change everything in his Samsung's management system, from strategy to a people's mindset. So Chairman Lee Kun-hee proposed very famous slogan at that time: change everything except for your wife and children. But at that time, Samsung employees I interviewed with, they were very skeptical. And Chairman Lee Kun-hee set the vision to make Samsung global #1 in the 21st century. But they were very skeptical about that kind of the ambitious vision. And also they were complacent because although Samsung was a second-tier player in the global marketplace, it was a dominant player in the domestic market. And they made $1 billion profits even at the time. So why should we change? So most Samsung employees at the time wanted to change their wives for keeping everything else. But Chairman Lee Gun-hee was very persistent, and he continued to push forward the massive change management, and it eventually paid off.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
In your book, you identify Samsung's paradox management as a key to its success.
Yes.
What do you mean by the paradox,
Mhm,
the word
mhm.
paradox? And why is paradox management so important for leading corporations?
Yes. I'm a strategy professor, and Professor Michael Porter at Harvard Business School is a guru in strategy, and he proposed very famous so-called generic competitive strategy. And he argued that a company should choose either differentiation or low-cost leadership strategy. If a company pursues both differentiation and low-cost leadership, it's quite likely that company will fall into what he calls stuck in the middle status. So that was what Michael Porter preached in the business school classroom. But I think those days are gone. In this hyper-competitive world with lots of uncertainty, if you want to be a global leader, you should pursue and achieve multiple goals simultaneously, such as differentiation and low-cost leadership, or global scale economies and speed, or global integration and local responsiveness, and creative innovation and efficiency. Actually, such ambitious companies as Apple, Toyota, and Samsung somehow ignored Michael Porter's advice, and they began to pursue multiple goals together simultaneously, such as differentiation, low-cost leadership, and speed. That is what I call the paradox management. Paradox management is defined as the management strategy which pursues seemingly contradictory goals, such as low-cost leadership and differentiation or speed, like that. And by doing so, companies can gain multiple sources of competitive advantages in the global marketplace. And if you can do it, then you can be the world leader, and you can maintain your global leader status for a long time. Okay.
What are the defining features of Samsung's paradox management, and why was it important for the company's
Okay.
success?
I do believe, in this book, I emphasize that Samsung style paradox management was the main success factor of the company in the global marketplace. Samsung was a latecomer, and they were underdogs in many segments of the electronic industry. But eventually, they became number one in semiconductor memory chips and digital TVs, smartphones, and in so many different areas. So in my book and in my Harvard Business Review article and upcoming California Management Review article, I identified three paradoxes of Samsung's management system. First, Samsung is a huge organization, but Samsung is very speedy in terms of decision making and execution. These days, I had a chance to give speech to Japanese executives, and when I talk about Samsung's success, Japanese executives always said to me, Samsung was very successful because the company is very speedy, unlike Japanese rivals. Speedy in terms of both decision making and execution.
Because it's consensus based mostly.
Yes, but scholars in management and also sociology, they always said, big corporations should be very slow and should be very bureaucratic. So Samsung defies sort of a conventional wisdom. They are very big and conglomerates, and highly diversified and highly vertically integrated. Yet it's very speedy as opposed to its main rivals. Of course, it's not as speedy as startup companies, but it's speedy, much speedier than its rivals overseas. And second, actually, the second paradox I identified in this book is that the Samsung is highly diversified and highly vertically integrated and still manufacturing oriented, yet very competitive and highly specialized in their core business areas by making their membership business, TVs, smartphones global number one. So as I mentioned before, their intangible assets such as patents or design capabilities or brand images became now world class. And their main rivals are highly specialized companies. Unlike conglomerates in the Western world, Samsung was able to outcompete these highly specialized companies. So in that way, Samsung defied conventional wisdoms of the Western management scholars. These days, Western management scholars always emphasized outsourcing is good, and diversification is bad, and vertical integration is so inflexible. But Samsung maintains that kind of the conventional systems, but still very competitive. And finally, I think Samsung combined good elements of the Japanese management system with the good elements of the American management system. When I gave a speech to Japanese executives also said Samsung succeeded because it has the American management system. It's half true and half wrong. If you go to Samsung's manufacturing plants, still predominantly the Japanese management system. And Samsung benchmarked and adopted world's best Japanese operations management. But at the same time, Samsung introduced highly effective American-style strategy and HR systems. So corporate headquarters are more like corporate headquarters in the United States, but manufacturing plants more like manufacturing plants in Japan. But Western scholars like Bill Och, Milgram and Roberts, they argued the Japanese management system is not compatible with the American management system because they were built on highly different assumptions. For example, Japanese management system always emphasized the importance of employee loyalty, but American management system, American companies typically, pursue some restructuring like that. How can you maintain employee loyalty when restructuring occurs frequently like American companies? So that's why Western scholars said that the Japanese management system is not compatible with the American management system. But in Samsung, you can see both elements. And Samsung was able to succeed in coexisting these two seemingly contradictory elements of Japanese and American management styles.
Right.
So these are three paradoxes.
The first one, the point about the size and the speed, I think that's so interesting. How was a company so diversified and large in scale able to increase its speed and execution in decision making? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
It's a very difficult challenge. And that's what Jeff Immelt wanted me to emphasize when I gave a speech to GE executives. Samsung treat both size and speed, and Samsung is very speedy in terms of decision making and execution. And how could Samsung speed up the decision making process? Most importantly, I think division of roles between family owners, owner managers, and professional managers. And Samsung has the so-called three-tier governance system. Chairman Ligoni at the top, and corporate strategy office in the middle, and then CEOs and division presidents at the bottom. And Chairman Ligoni, typically he set the long-term vision of the company, and he's involved in the multi-billion-dollar investment decisions. For example, in the semiconductor industry, you should make multi-billion-dollar investments, even in the downturn of the business cycle. Chairman Lee Kun-hee was able to make such decision even in the downturn, whereas professional managers in Japan they were highly reluctant to make such investments, especially in the downturn of the business cycle, because again, Japan's decision-making process was consensus-based, and also they were professional managers, and they were much more conscious about the short-term performance. But at the same time, Chairman Lee Kun-hee delegated most other strategic and operational decisions to his competent professional managers. Chairman Lee Kun-hee seldom showed up in his office. So when Chairman Lee Kun-hee began to come to his office several days a week, starting from, say, 2011, I forgot the exact year, it became a headline news in Korea. Finally, Chairman Lee Kun-hee showed up in his office. So Chairman Lee Kun-hee delegated most other decisions to his professional managers. In that way, Samsung was able to speed up the decision-making process. And also at the same, in addition, after the new management initiative, Samsung shortened the decision-making steps from 7 to 3, like that. And Samsung also, in the past 10 years or so, made multi-billion-dollar investments in the IT-based infrastructure, such as global supply chain management or global ERP system. Samsung now boasts of world's best global ERP and SCM system. So they are able to obtain information almost on a real-time basis from all of the world. So definitely it can be the basis of the speedy decision-making. And in terms of this speedy execution, probably the most important thing is Samsung's sort of fighting spirit. I think Samsung is sort of a cult-like organization. Chairman Lee Kun-hee is sort of a religious leader of the organization. Actually, in the 1990s, the best-selling business book was written by Jim Collins. The title was The Built to Last. And Built to Last, actually in the book Built to Last, Jim Collins analyzed the 8 features of the visionary companies. One of the main features was the cult-like culture. Samsung has such a cult-like culture. So Chairman Lee Kun-hee and his professional managers always impose strategic goals. And Chairman Lee Kun-hee always tried to infuse sense of crisis. Samsung, top management of Samsung always said, we are facing crisis. Even after they made $10 billion profits in the year 2004, Mr. Yoon Jong-yong, CEO of Samsung Electronics at the time, in his New Year's speech, he began by saying that we are facing crisis. And in the previous year, Samsung's profits was just behind Toyota, second best in the world. So, but what surprised me was that the Samsung employees, most of them just accept that kind of sense of crisis and strategic goals. So to achieve that kind of the strategic goals, they had no other choice but to maximize execution speed. How could they do that? A fighting spirit. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So they worked very hard. Sort of cult-like culture, that's what I'm saying.
Right. You've talked a lot about the importance of the leadership and governance of Samsung in not just transforming the company, but sustaining its competitive advantage.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, again, Samsung has developed the so-called 3-tier governance system. And they actually imposed very effective division of roles among 3 tiers of top management. And Chairman Lee Kun-hee is a visionary, and he's a very charismatic leader, and he set the long-term vision of the company, like the new management initiative, and he's involved in the long-term investment decisions, and of course he can appoint or fire, his CEOs based on their performances. But again, as I mentioned before, he delegated most other decisions to his professional managers. And in the middle of this three-tier system, an organization named Corporate Strategy Office is there, and Corporate Strategy Office is also very powerful. And what is the main role of the Corporate Strategy Office? I think the first role is to assist Chairman Lee Gun-hee so that he can make a right decision. And actually, Samsung Economic Research Institute is also assisting Chairman Lee Gun-hee by providing some very valuable information. In addition, Corporate Strategy Office monitors and evaluates strategy and performance, the behaviors of affiliate companies. Finally, Corporate Strategy Office actively engaged in brokering some cooperation among affiliate companies. For example, Chairman Lee Gun-hee imposed a very ambitious vision to make Samsung's TVs number one in the world in the year 2004. So Corporate Strategy Office actually organized a special committee which consisted of CEOs of related companies. So the special committee had meetings frequently so that they can collaborate with each other for the same goal, making Samsung TV world number one. And in just 2 years, Samsung became a number one player in the digital TV industry. And more recent example was Samsung's response to the Apple shock in the smartphone industry. Samsung officially entered the smartphone industry after the Apple shock. But in merely 4 years, Samsung became a number one player in the smartphone industry. In the process, Corporate Strategy Office closely, coordinated activities of the related affiliate companies so that Samsung can catch up with Apple quickly. So that is the role of the Corporate Strategy Office. And also at the bottom of this three-tier system, you can find highly competent professional managers. Yes, the executives of Corporate Strategy Office, they are all professional managers. They rotate between Corporate Strategy Office and also affiliate companies. You can find very competent CEOs and division presidents at the bottom, and they make some strategic and most operational decisions on their own. In many cases, on the spot, very quickly. So in that way, they were able to speed up the decision-making process, as I mentioned before.
So, in closing, I have 2 questions for you. One, what are some lessons that Samsung can, or what are the lessons from Samsung's case that other leading global corporations can learn? And what are the challenges ahead for Samsung to maintain its current profile and growth?
Actually, the most important lesson for companies, both Western companies and companies in the emerging world, can take is actually the strategic insights into the paradigm changes. Actually, Samsung was able to become a world-class company because they grasped 2 opportunities. The first opportunity was actually the transition from the analog technology to digital technology, as I mentioned before. And the second opportunity for Samsung to become even stronger was the rapid emergence of the smartphone industry. Samsung was not a pioneer of the smartphone business, but Samsung was able to understand the importance of smartphone quickly, and they were able to respond to the challenge from Apple in a very nimble way. So I think a big lesson you can learn from Samsung is that to become a world-class company and maintain that kind of status, you should always be very open-minded to the kind of the paradigm changes in the environment, and you should grasp opportunities from the kind of the environmental change, paradigm change. And major paradigm shifts can give the golden opportunity for latecomers to catch up with the industry incumbents. But at the same time, the same environmental change or paradigm shifts can pose very serious threats to the industry leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Chairman Ligoni continues to warn. All the major products of Samsung Electronics will be gone in the next 10 years. So Samsung should be, should develop the next growth engine. So that's going to be the main challenge Samsung is now facing, because about 2/3 of operating profits of Samsung came from the single business, smartphone business last year. But in the advanced country or in Korea, smartphone is rapidly becoming mature. The smartphone industry is being saturated.
Mm.
So that's a big challenge for Samsung. But there is still strong growth from emerging markets such as China. But in the emerging market, many, not the premium segment, but many in the low and mid-end segments, especially in the Chinese market, Chinese companies like Xiaomi, Huawei, and Lenovo are emerging very rapidly. And in the last quarter, in the second quarter of this year, Xiaomi became number one in the Chinese market. It was even shocking to me. Xiaomi was founded 4 years ago, and it grabbed the number one market share in the Chinese market, outcompeting Samsung and Apple. So, it's inevitable for Samsung, to, lose the market share in the smartphone industry, and their financial performance in the smartphone business will go down. So that's going to be a big challenge, and they should come up with the next growth engine, which can replace the smartphone business. There are some areas Samsung began to invest heavily, such as Internet of Things, wearable devices, mobile health devices, smart home or flexible display. But in these areas, say wearable devices, Internet of Things, Google and Apple also are making heavy investments.
Mm-hmm.
So Samsung should compete with Google and Apple.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, Samsung was a fast follower. Samsung competed based on efficiency and so on. So initially, Samsung started as a fast follower, and then they began to build up their R&D muscle, and they were able to develop somewhat differentiated products. But in these emerging areas, Samsung should be the pioneer, and they should be the innovator. So it's an unprecedented load Samsung never followed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a big change for Samsung.
Right.
How can they become the true leader or pioneer in these emerging areas? To do so, they may need to change everything again. And so that's going to be a big
Reinvent
challenge.
themselves
Yes,
again.
yes.
Well, thank you. Please join me in thanking Dr. Song for his amazing presentation.
Okay.